All right, guys, hello, welcome back to my channel here, Adam22. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about a comment that I recently received. Somebody was like, how the fuck do you stay so interested in rap? You're 34, you're old. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, man, it is weird. You know, I was just thinking about it the other day. Like, I am pretty capable of sitting there and having a conversation with an 18-year-old rap kid, and we can relate to whatever extent. You know, I'm not exactly in his shoes, he's not exactly in my shoes, but there's a common ground where we can have a conversation. And then I can also sit down with like a 40-year-old fucking business guy who runs a label or is in charge of a brand or something like that, and I can have that conversation too. And that, I think, is a lot of what's allowed me to get to the point where I'm at. But to a lot of people, it almost seems sort of counterintuitive. Like, how could you be capable of like having adult conversations and stuff? Sometimes they listen to my podcast that I do with like more adult people, and they're sort of like, whoa, like you just had this super intelligent conversation with this guy, and then it doesn't make sense to them. Like, how could you still also want to interview like a 17-year-old SoundCloud rapper? Here's the thing. I love rap music. And when I say I love rap music, I mean, I enjoy rap music as it is today, as it's probably gonna be tomorrow. And I care about these kids who are young and wanna make it in the rap game. I don't just care about them as rappers. I don't care about them just as the fact that they're, putting out music that is like influencing the culture, and I like that music and stuff like that. I mean, that is one part of it. I actually do love the craft and I admire what they're doing, everything. But the thing about it that goes beyond that is I just care about these kids as people because I can really relate to where they're coming from as young people in the game. Just the other day I was listening to this interview and Peter Rosenberg was like, because of my job, I've stayed pretty clued in to like what's going on with the younger rappers and everything. I don't really think that that's because of my job that I feel like I'm very in touch with what's going on with rap. Actually, when J. Cole came through the other day, my employee Chris, who has been friends with me for like 12, 15 years, whatever, he was having the conversation with J. Cole, like, yeah man, ever since I met Adam, he's like been this fucking weird dude who was like obsessed with underground rappers, and no matter what happened, he would always just be waking up in the morning and freaking out about some rapper, telling me about some song, making me watch some video. He's kind of more of a normal guy, but that's just always like what I've been naturally drawn to. Also, my cat's walking by and I want to show him some love. Follow, I am Tony Cat on the gram. You know, the other day I was listening to this interview with Lorne Michaels, who's the guy who created Saturday Night Live. He basically was talking about how no matter what, whenever he talks to anybody, it always seems like their favorite season of Saturday Night Live is the one when they discovered Saturday Night Live, you know, when they're like 15 or 16 and they're finally able to stay up late enough that they get to watch the show. When you actually watch Saturday Night Live, you know, it's a little bit edgy. There's some like political jokes and some edgy, controversial jokes, stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, it's kind of like middle America type humor. That's sort of, you know, it's the kind of stuff that your parents could laugh at. You can kind of laugh at it. But when you're 15 or 16, Saturday Night Live seems kind of exciting. Maybe not for this new generation of internet kids, but for me at that time when I started watching it, I fucking loved it. And something happened pretty quickly. All of a sudden I'm like, 18, 19, and Saturday Night Live seems super lame and boring to me because, I grew up a little bit, and all of a sudden I wasn't laughing at the same stuff that made me laugh when I first found out about, sort of late night comedy-based television. The same exact thing happens with rap. I fell for Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Wu-Tang, Tupac, whatever it was in the early days, Bone Thugs, all that stuff. I fell for that shit when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. So of course it is seared into my memory that I have just all these incredible experiences in terms of just loving rap. And I'm lucky because I grew up in what is generally considered to be, the golden age of rap music. A lot of those artists I just named are generally considered to be like some of the greatest hip-hop artists of all time. But I also never let that sort of cloud my appreciation for rap music that has come since. And a lot of that is just the fact that I understand that what I was going through when I was super young, when I was just entering puberty and I was listening to hip hop for the first time, that experience was unique to me. And that the average kid who's 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, whatever it is, whatever age that they discovered hip hop, what they're going through when they discover Lil Pump or TK or whoever, it's exactly like what I went through when I discovered these rappers. And like, yeah, okay, you can look and say, oh, Dr. Dre is a better recording artist than Lil Pump, fine. Maybe he's had more of an impact on the culture as a whole, I get that. But that really doesn't mean anything to a teenager who's just coming of age. You have to recognize that that feeling that you have because somebody like me, who's 34, I loved Snoop and Dre and all that shit so much, and it was such an integral part of my childhood that of course it means more to me deep down inside than anything else that I'll probably ever experience again in my entire time being a rap fan. And I accept that and I get that and I'm actually cool with that, because what makes me so happy when I'm at a Lil Pump show and I see a 14-year-old kid losing his mind and it's clear that he's having the best time of his entire life, I get that, because I was a kid too, and I had those experiences going to see rappers, go see bands, whatever, when I was young. I get it that I'm not supposed to necessarily be experiencing music on the same heightened level of experience that I did when I was younger. I just feel lucky that I still do have these heightened experiences at all. And a lot of times it's like just the excitement of finding out about an artist when they're really young and knowing they have talent and just getting to spot it early and be like, yo, that kid is going to be great. That's a big part of what has happened to the excitement of the music with me now, is that it's not always just about the music. A lot of it has to do with the characters and caring so much about the people within the space and how they do within that realm. I get how it is with a lot of people in terms of the way that they experience hip hop. They love it when they're going through these sort of formative years. They're 14, 15, 16, they find out about rap, they love it. All of a sudden they're 19, they're 20, they're in college, they get exposed to some other types of music, or they get exposed to, you know, different beliefs, different people, whatever, and all of a sudden rap music doesn't feel the same to them. I totally get that, even though it didn't really happen to me, because there are other genres of music. Like I remember late 90s, early 2000s, I was obsessed with Taking Back Sunday, the Get Up Kids, the Anniversary, all these sort of early emo bands. And all of a sudden, you know, a couple years later, I had found myself just not really that into it anymore. Like I liked those bands a ton when they were first coming out and everything, but then say by the time like Brand New rolled around, Brand New is like one of the most formative, important like emo type bands ever. By the time Brand New really came out and started making an impact, I would go and listen to them because I have friends that really liked them, but it definitely didn't mean as much to me as those earlier bands. And I didn't really stay with the genre. You know, I could say that about hardcore music too, that I loved hardcore music so much throughout high school. By the time I started to reach like 21 or whatever, the allure of it sort of wore off on me, just because it's true that when you are into hardcore, if you're into emo, whatever, you're sort of seeing the same tropes just played out again and again. My first straight edge band. The first band that I listened to who was singing all this crazy shit about how badass they were and how cool being straight edge was. My homie stabbed me in the back and all this shit that is just standard fare and hardcore lyrics. It might have seemed really intense and exciting to me when I was 15 or 16, but then all of a sudden I'm 21 and that shit doesn't really seem that cool or exciting to me anymore. So I totally get when people like are in love with rap and then eventually they have to step away from it and they just don't understand what's going on with it anymore. I get that, because like I love Wu-Tang, and like there's a lot of different reasons why I love Wu-Tang, but a lot of the elements of why I love Wu-Tang are not necessarily active in a lot of the rap that I love these days. Like motherfuckers really just ain't rapping like Ghostface Killah most of the time. You know, I get that, because like if I had just been so set in my ways that I was like, yo, I can't enjoy a rap song unless these dudes are spitting like the dudes in Wu-Tang, then I probably would have like gotten disillusioned with rap music and I would have, you know, kind of strayed away from it and everything. Somehow that didn't happen, and I think it's because I think with rap, it's like on a social level in some way, I relate to the rappers enough that I don't get sick of hearing their stories. I'm just constantly being blasted in the face with reminders of how great rap music is and how important the changes it can have on people are. Like for instance, just the other day I was sitting over here doing this Rico Reckless interview and he's got his kid sitting right next to him, and his kid I think was 8 at the time, and I keep getting distracted because he's like watching music videos on his phone, and I just keep like looking over because I'm seeing flashes of light in the peripheral of my eye. 8-year-old kid, and he's watching Maddox, Lil Pump, KK, he's watching his dad, Rico Reckless, which I thought was adorable. But I'm just like thinking of it from the perspective of this 8-year-old kid. It's even younger than the age that I was at when I got into rap. But in terms of entertainment, this kid has a choice. He could go watch, you know, superhero cartoons, stuff like that, that basically, you know, tell stories about people who are, you know, involved in crime or fighting crime, life and death situations. It's exhilarating. I think it's pretty obvious that like young boys are drawn to these sort of caricatures, these cartoonish versions of masculinity. It's the same reason why I was drawn to professional wrestling. But I'm looking at his phone, he's watching Pump, he's watching TK, he's watching fucking Maddox, all these young ass kids who or at least look young. Pump may be 17, but he actually looks even younger, really. He's watching it and he loves it, and he don't necessarily watch cartoons in the way that I grew up watching cartoons or whatever. These are his superheroes, basically. And I get that, and I appreciate it, and I love it. At the same time, it does kind of worry me in the sense that, you know, a lot of these role models like TK, Pump, whatever, they're like extremely violent, sometimes like in practice, sometimes just in the stuff that they say. So obviously that's worrisome that like, you know, maybe a kid could be influenced in the wrong way or whatever. And that's a big part of my enjoyment of hip hop over the years. It's always going to kind of, a big part of getting older and still being able to appreciate hip hop is still being able to appreciate that there are young people in rap who are saying and doing things that you wouldn't necessarily agree with, or to you they seem kind of immature or silly or whatever. You know, it takes a certain amount of just keeping yourself a little bit removed from it for me to be able to watch a TK video where he's, you know, bragging about being on the run and how he may or may not have shot somebody, all this shit. For me as an adult, it can be sort of complicated, sort of tricky to watch that and not just be fully like concerned, like, yo, like we should not be promoting this shit. Like this is bad. Like this is bad for society. I mean, it probably is, but at a certain point, you know, you got to be able to step back and appreciate it from an artistic perspective as well, and hope that maybe like the culture as a whole can change over time to be less violent, to be more positive. I mean, the steps are slow, but I mean, in my lifetime, I've seen hip hop get infinitely less homophobic, misogynistic, violent even. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, like when I say the rap has gone much, much less misogynistic, but a lot of those people are probably not remembering how fucking gnarly rap was back in the day. Like we were talking about this the other day, there's an NWA song where Eazy-E literally raps about robbing a bank, and he goes to rape the bank teller, and she turns out to be trans or something and has a penis, so he shoots her in the penis. So that's the kind of thing that I think that there would probably be like a public outcry if that sort of thing was said in rap music these days. So there's a step in the right direction. I remember when Jim Jones used to like scream hermaphrodite and transsexual and stuff as like insults, as ad-libs in rap songs. You don't really see that anymore. So that's, I think, a good step in the right direction. At least on a personal level, you know, I've noticed like rap fans get a lot less shitty, basically, overall. I'll just say shitty instead of saying all the other things I could possibly say. I mean, that's kind of part of what it is to be an older person who's interested in rap, is that you have to be able to, you know, in some ways be concerned about the content that these young people are putting out, because, you know, rap, for the most part, you know, there are a lot of older artists, but artists usually break when they're a bit younger. I don't really know what the fuck I just said. I just rambled about this one topic for like fucking 15 minutes, and I guess I'm gonna edit it down a little bit. But I'm very interested to see what you guys think. If you're an older person involved in rap, if you're a younger person involved in rap and you think that I just sound like an old fuck, I would like to hear about that. I'd like to hear some opinions. Let's have an intelligent conversation. Appreciate anybody who watched this. No jumper. Like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, that'll do it.